Hello there guys, it's Oswalds and welcome back to another video. On December 1st I made a video announcing a game jam that will last 10 days and I managed to get a few games. So in this video I'll rank all of the games from the lowest to the highest, and in the end of the video we'll get to find out our winner for the game jam. Oswalds Burgers. Now I think we can all see why this game is at the lowest. So first off, the flashlight doesn't cover the entire screen, and second off, the crow doesn't come often and you just need to click it, so it's not really interesting mechanic, and it also takes a long while for the hunger meter to fill up. And there's also a bug that I encountered where the crow was nowhere to be seen, but it attacked me anyway. But I can give the game some props for adding the crow on different coordinates. Unfortunately, that's the only pro with this game that I can say, so let's proceed. I had 8 hours, 7 minutes and 36 seconds to make. Damn, that was a long name. So first off, with the task thing, there's like no point in doing it. And there's also a clock beside you. But when it reaches 6 AM, nothing happens. It's just there's no goal at all in the game. And there's also one enemy with one way to kill you. And the AI for that animatronic is rather janky. Just look at this footage. He stands at the door, then he peeks from it, and then he just goes away since I spammed the door button. There should be like some variable that detects when the door is closed, so the animatronic walks away immediately, instead of just spamming the door button to make it go away. So the reason that it's higher than Oswalds Burgers is because you at least need to do something against the enemy instead of just clicking it. And there's also more mechanics to explore than Oswalds Burgers. But let's move on to the next game. Curse of the Banana Island. Now first off, there's just one enemy and you just need to run away from it. And not only that, the enemy is really buggy. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't attack if you don't run away fast enough. It just disappears. And also, the game is rather repetitive. Just pick up a bunch of bananas and give it to the banana guy. And there's not really any goal. And the word really is important here, since the only goal is just to get a high score and nothing else. Something that I can praise this game for is that bananas appear at random locations and there's a random number on how many you need to collect, adding at least some variety. And you can also go to different areas, and that is always welcome. So the reason that it's higher is because even though the game is repetitive, the game lets you do something and the enemy is more active compared to the previous game. 3 nights at Mushy's. So now first off, there's one enemy, so that knocks off a few points. Despite the game having 4 nights and only having one enemy and only having one way to kill you, Mushy is really slow, even on the 4th night. The footage that you're seeing right now is me playing the game on the 4th night. And yeah, overall the game is rather repetitive. You just need to wait a long time. I checked the inside of the project and saw that each in-game hour takes 70 to 80 seconds from 11 PM to 7 AM. Again, the fact that there's one slow enemy doesn't make it better. However, from what I've seen, the game doesn't contain any bugs. The reason that 3 Nights at Mushy's is higher than Curse of the Banana Island is because there's more mechanics and you're at least working for a goal. So now, let's continue. The Seek. So first off, there's 2 animatronics with different mechanics. That's what we like. And this game also has a rather fast night. 40 seconds every in-game hour. But a problem that I have with this game is that the animatronics have a pretty slow AI, despite the fact that there's one night and that there's 2 animatronics. But in conclusion, the reason that this game has a higher precision than 3 Nights at Mushy's is due to the visuals, and there's a bit more action in this game. Late Night. Now, there's 2 different sections with different mechanics. One is about turning on a lighter from time to time, and the other one is to shoot the enemies with a shotgun. So, both of them are short. The first section can be beaten under like 3 seconds. No, I'm not kidding. And the second phase is just you waiting for 1 minute, and then the entire game is done. Finding the code is also rather easy. Just type in something that's in a room. I'm not gonna say the code, but it's always the same. So the reason it's higher is because it's more of a short and sweet experience compared to the Seek. It also has more enemies who are more active. A night with cardboard. So first off, there's just one enemy, and you just need to click on the cardboard to make it go away. So that also knocks off a few points. But what I can give this game praise to is that you need to do the task, so you can play at your own pace. And I also like the quote-unquote camera system. It's not a camera system, it's more of a radar, but I also like that. So the reason why it ranks higher than Late Night is because it's longer and it has more substance. There's a bit more mechanics to explore, and well, there's also a task mechanic, and that is always welcome. Cha-Cha's Treeland. So first off, there are two animatronics with different mechanics, and that is always welcome. There's also a fast timer, which makes the game less frustrating if you get killed. Now about the power. You can charge it, but the power doesn't have a limit on how much it can be charged. You can have it to like 1000 and there's no limit. Now even if it is intentional, it's rather unnecessary since not much is happening. Furthermore, you can just spam click the generator to charge the power, instead of clicking and holding it and adding 1% every like 2 seconds. Also, you can flash Cha-Cha while charging the generator, making the game overly easy. It's a one-night game, by the way. So the reason it's higher is because even though A Night with Cardboard has a task mechanic, this game has one more enemy, and you need to be aware of the dogs since it activates silently. The enemies are also more active. Days of Your Nightmares. So first off, there are two entrances for two different animatronics. The sad thing is that both of them are dealt with by the same way. You just need to hold a door or a curtain. Also, the flashlight doesn't have a power meter or something like that. But the reason that this game is higher is because the game is more active with their enemies than the previous game, which is important since this game has, well, one night and two animatronics, just like Cha-Cha's Treeland. You also need to do a bit more to get rid of the animatronics than clicking on a key on your keyboard or just left clicking them. You need to hold the Z key and check if the coast is clear or not. Lips Terror Night. So first off, there are two animatronics with a different way to kill. What I don't like about this game is the fact that there's no limit at all on how much you can use the equipment. You can have the vent closed for entire time, but you have to close it every time you stop Frown from crawling through the vent. But my point still stands. There should at least be some kind of power meter or overheating mechanic. Also, you can shock Lip no matter which room it is located in. I checked the code and it seems to be intentional, but I think the shock button is only used when Lip is in the hallway instead. So the reason that this game is higher is because the two animatronics have a different way to kill you compared to the animatronics in Days of Your Nightmares who take different entrances instead. There's also more mechanics to work with in this game. And let's not forget the visuals too. Two Nights with John 2, Back for More. So there's two characters with different ways to kill the player. So one is that you have to shock them, and the other one is that you kind of like have to restart the cameras every now and then so it doesn't reach the fuse box. But a minus in this game is that it brings up mechanics that are never used. Now I get that it was gonna be for the two other characters, but I don't see a reason for including them in the phone call anyway. Especially since it's a text-to-speech call and you can just type in what the call is gonna tell you. So the reason that it's higher is because you need to wait until the enemies try to strike, which means you need to be aware of their presence. Compared to Lips Terror Night, where you can shock him even when he's moved to one room from his starting area, and that you can keep the vent closed most of the time until Frown gets stopped. And also, I like the OST in this game. The Basement. So first off, both animatronics have different mechanics, and the Melted Things mechanic is rather creative. You need to replicate the radio channel number to the cam number where the melted thing is located. So if the melted thing is at, for example, cam 2, you need to change the radio to channel 2. However, the radio is a bit bugged. If you click it too quickly, it changes to channels that don't exist. You also need to be a bit more sparing on how much you can use the shock button and the cameras. Plus, the enemies are also a bit more active. One-Night at Jammy's. So now there are 3 characters. I also like the fact that you can't play the sounds too often because otherwise you'll die, so that prevents the player from using the sound buttons excessively. Jake appears in random cameras, so it requires you to look around more. It has a fair share of mechanics, such as a reboot button and 2 sound buttons, 1 for the office and 1 for the camera system. I found out that the gameplay is rather repetitive. It's just looking at the cameras in long intervals, play the sound when you see one of the animatronics twitching, make sure to stop the 3rd character in the office, and that's it. Most cameras don't show any room, it just shows the office. They do however show portions of the animatronics when they're in the room. So the reason that this game is higher is because there's in general more to look out for, such as the computer crashing and the fact that you need to look around more in the cameras to not miss Jake or Jammy twitching. There's also an enemy that appears in your office, so you must be sure to not look at the cameras too much. One Night with Scray Man. There's 3 characters with different ways of killing you. You need to click the first character, you need to hide from the second one, and the 3rd one will kill you if it's under the desk and you hide under it. So the hiding thing can be a bit glitchy, since it can sometimes look like you're not hiding even when you are. Just look at this footage. And I don't see the point with the area behind you. I guess a character was supposed to enter through these gaps and you had to cover the holes with the paper. I assume that the enemy wasn't added due to time issues. So there's no bugs, at least from what I've seen, except for that glitch. So the reason that this game is higher than One Night at Jammy's is because it's more eventful. Not to mention that this game and One Night at Jammy's are both one-night games. And has 3 characters. The enemies in this game are also diverse in how you get rid of them, or avoid them. The vacant office. So first off, you need to choose 2 programs to complete the night. Program 1 requires you to answer questions about the lore of the game, how the program works, and the company you work at. Program 2 requires you to answer questions about your shift. Sometimes the animatronics may come in and ask the same questions and they'll kill you if you answer incorrectly. What I appreciate about this game is the fact that you need to find visual or auditorial clues to figure out the answers to the questions. The game can also sometimes softlock you, just for no reason. However, the game is about constantly answering the same questions and making sure to not get them wrong until a timer ends, and that's it. So the reason that this game is higher is because it has more content than the previous game. It also has really smooth animations for jump scares and running to different areas. And the idea for this game is in general impressive. Five Nights at Frederico. So there's 3 characters. Even though 2 of them gets fooled by the mask, Frederico compensates by having 2 ways of entering the office, either through the event or door. Another pro is that the animatronics aren't overly difficult to deal with. I even noticed it in Night 4, where the animatronics weren't that challenging, but weren't too easy, which is something I appreciate. The power doesn't go down too fast, which makes up for the nights being quite long. The custom night doesn't work for Bonisco and Chizia. I'm serious. I tried the custom night with Frederico at 0, but having 20 on Chizia and Bonisco. And guess what? They didn't move at all, but Frederico was the only one who moved. The reason that this game is higher is because the game is more diverse in mechanics. I also like the balanced gameplay, such as the toximeter. The artwork adds some bonus points too. I liked the idea for the vacant office, but I thought it was poorly executed by the questions being the same. Cubicle. So first off, there are 5 characters, and the cubes either kill the player or can disorient the gameplay. For example, 1 blocks your view, and 1 jump scares you. I also appreciate the fact that 3 of the 5 cubes try to kill the player, instead of making it too similar to, for example, FNAF 3. I also like the effect that happens when magenta or red appears in the office, where the screen becomes increasingly red, and if it becomes completely red, you'll die. It lets you know how much time you have to hide. Red's AI is rather bugged. He enters the office once and then he just never returns. Also, after you hide from him, it still looks like he's in the office even though he actually isn't. But that lasts for some duration of time. The game is more So the reason that this game is higher is because the game is more eventful and has more enemies. The game is also a bit more challenging compared to Five Nights at Frederico. Rubik's Cube Origins. So first off, there are 4 characters. While 2 of them fall for the same defense, the 2 others have different ways to kill. Grin is the one you have to look at through the cameras, and for Gobstopper, you need to wait to change another camera until it disappears. You can make decisions in the game which results in different endings. And you have a talk with the boss in the beginning of the hard mode. Remember the 2 enemies I mentioned earlier, Gobstopper and Grin? Since they have completely opposite ways to kill, while rare, Grin can sometimes appear in a camera where Gobstopper is, which can make these 2 annoying when activated at the same time and happen to be at the exact same camera. So the reason because this game is higher is due to the visuals and the fact that you can make decisions. There's also an easy mode and there's a hard mode compared to the previous game. There's also more danger to look out for compared to Cubicle. Grace. So first off, there's 6 animatronics. Good portion of them have their own way to be a threat. It's mostly balanced in difficulty. The nights are short in time, but the reason I say mostly is because white and grey don't show in the office, so if you don't keep an eye on them, there is a risk that they'll sneak up on you and kill you. Since they don't, and also, when beginning on playing the game, you need to go inside the project to find a code for the first night. I mean, why not add a new game button and a continue button? And when you click the continue button, that's when you need to find a code. Maybe a bit nitpicky, but it's annoying that the camera changes to cam 1 when you boot the monitor up, since you constantly need to change the camera to cam 5 to wind up the box. Well, the reason that this game is higher is because there's more animatronics and you need to use more different defenses for them, except for white, grey, and their withered counterparts, who all fall for the shock button, since grey and white aren't visible in the office even when they're there. The shadow events. So first off, there's a mechanic that lets you determine the quality of the cameras, which also determines how much power you consume. And there's also a generator that is active for an amount of time after the main power has run out, which prevents the game being overly punishing. There is 2 ways to hide, and that adds variety in how you hide from the animatronics. The creator even goes the extra mile to animate the animatronics running around in your office. The problem with this game is that the way you hide isn't fully explained. Like, there are 2 hiding spots, but the game doesn't explain which spot you should hide in for that specific animatronic. So the reason that it's higher is because the camera quality mechanic is rather creative. I like that one. The visuals and animations are also impressive for being made in Scratch, and there is more content to this game in general. Oswalds Burgers and Fries. So first off, there are 6 enemies and you need to shoot most of them with a gun. But one will try to kill you if you look at it through the cameras, and the other one backs off if you watch at it through the cameras. And also, when clicking continue, you're not actually continuing to another night, you're continuing to another hour instead, until you get to the ending. And that is a good way to make the game less frustrating if you get killed. A problem that I have with this game is that I wish that you had to hover the mouse on the button above to bring up the gun, instead of having to click it. That would have been way more effective when multiple enemies attack at the same time, or if Willy shows up. He kills you fairly quickly if you don't deal with him. And also, a quite common bug is that the Nite will sometimes be completely inactive and the enemies are gone. So the reason that this game is higher is because it has a lot of enemies, and even though a lot of them fall for the same defense, they are more diverse when you need to shoot them and what routes they take to get to you. Red Dawn. So first off, you can play at your own pace by writing a journal. And there's also a sound level mechanic that goes up when you go to different areas and when you write on the journal. You can also go to different areas. There are 2 doors, a main room, and 2 gaps on the wall. There's also a meter that detects the horde outside a house. It decreases when an infected leaves or enters your shelter. And that is a creative way to let you know how safe you are, or how screwed you are. You can also be able to hear which room the infected are located in by listening through the holes in your office. And the danger of these different zombies are a little diverse. Note the word little, since they are just normal zombies who just try to break through the door, breaking 1 plank, and there's a strong variant who takes down 2. Then there's one who screams in order to attract the horde. Also, the defense that you use to prevent the infected from entering your room isn't that interesting. You just need to walk up to the door that's being pried on. So the reason that this game is higher is because, well, definitely the horde meter mechanic, but also like the idea of these planks serving as quote-unquote health bars for the doors. And being able to go to different areas is also a nice addition. A Night in the Frost. So first off, you need to do something to reach 6 AM, which is by sleeping. You can go to different areas, and most of them have their own mechanic. There's 4 characters. Well, 2 of them fall for the flashlight, the other 2 can be stopped by putting them in fire and by closing a door on them. And the mechanics are mostly balanced. For example, you need to put down the fire for one character, but you can't have it down for the entire time, because otherwise, you'll freeze. I wish that the flashlight also could have had a power meter. So the reason that this game is hard is because you need to do more against the enemies instead of just having to run up to a door that's being pried open. There's also more entrances for the enemies. But now, before we continue to the winner of the Game Jam, let's look at the honorable mentions for a game or couldn't get accepted. Heralds. It couldn't get accepted due to time issues. There's 4 animatronics who all fall for the door, but one of them runs for the door instead. It has incredible visuals and lighting effects, and the gameplay is mostly smooth. So that was the honorable mention. Now, let's get to the winner of the Game Jam. Festive Frights. So first off, I love the TV monsters and the radio monsters mechanic, and I also like the fact that the fire can sometimes go out, requiring you to use limited amount of firewood, which adds a bit more pressure. The enemies that try to enter the apartment do it through the door or window, adding variation and more entrances to look after. So why is Festive Frights higher than A Night in the Frost? They seem to be closely similar in gameplay, but despite having a timer and having less impressive visuals, I think that game had more to it due to the radio and TV monsters mechanic, since you need to change the different radio and TV channels and you constantly need to check on both of them to not get killed. And also, refilling the fireplace is also a good addition. And that concludes the ranking. So do you think that I was too easy or too harsh on some of the games? If so, leave a comment below. I'm open for any discussion. And I would also love to thank all of the creators who decided to take their time to make a game for my Game Jam. See you guys later. Adios.